everybody, welcome to the DVP Dive. My name is Dylan Ben Putton and I'm your host. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the difference between renting and buying. It really depends on your situation about which one is better, but today we'll kind of explain just the general ideas of both and help you better understand maybe renting's better for you or buying's better for you. So we're going to start off with renting. Basically how to start is you really need to decide how much money you want to spend each month. Can you afford $500 a month? Can you afford $1,000 a month? Maybe even $2,000 a month. By starting with a budget, it's going to help you kind of narrow some houses down. There's going to be some houses that are either out of your price range or kind of below your price range that you may not want to look at. Once you kind of have that budget, then you can really decide, what is going to be better for you. A house, a townhouse, apartment, condo, that kind of stuff. If you have pets, that's really going to affect kind of where you can live and where you can't. Some rentals will allow you to have pets. Some might only allow cats, small dogs, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of places that don't allow any pets at all. So that's one thing you have to take into consideration as well. Once you kind of have that basis, then you decide, how big or how small do you want it? If you chose a house, do you want a 3-bedroom house, maybe 2 bathrooms, something like that? It really just depends on your situation, how many people are in your family, how many people you have with you, do you want extra rooms for guests, that kind of stuff. Once you have that as, kind of a guideline, then it's going to make it way easier. Then you really have like a narrowed down list of houses that are available. Obviously, if you don't like any of those that you found, you can open it up a little bit. Maybe you search for a 3-bedroom house, maybe you want a 4-bedroom house, maybe you open it up a little bit. Maybe you put in $1,000 a month, maybe you think you can afford $1,200 a month, or the other way, maybe you decided that $1,000 wasn't the best idea, maybe drop it down to $800. Totally up to you. Once you have that narrowed down list, this is where you start, contacting people like myself, a realtor. You can contact a property manager, landlord. It really just depends on the situation. Sometimes people just have an extra house that they're leasing out and you need to contact them. There's property managing companies, that kind of stuff. When you rent a house, a lot of the times you're going to fill out an application, and sometimes there's an application fee, so they can kind of do a background check on you. It varies per situation. Sometimes people don't make you fill out as quite like in depth of a form. Other times they ask for a lot of information. That just depends on the situation. Once you fill out an application, you kind of just wait to see where you're accepted. There's gonna be a lot of applications for a lot of houses. There's gonna be a lot of applications for each individual house. If you get accepted, great. That means it's yours. Basically, how like your next step is you're gonna pay your security deposit and usually your first month's rent. So let's say you chose $1,000. That was your monthly rent. You're probably gonna pay that up front. And the security deposit depends. Sometimes they make you pay a full month's rent, sometimes half a month, sometimes $750. If there's a pet deposit, it just really all varies. And each house varies, each property managing company varies, that kind of stuff. So you really just gotta look into that and understand that before you agree to move in. If everything checks out, you pay your security deposit, you pay your first month's rent, it's basically your house, or apartment or townhouse, whatever you decide. That being said, you do have a landlord, you do have somebody that's watching over that house. Not literally like staring at the house, but it is theirs. You're paying rent to them. There could be, maintenance fees. There can be, like lawn cutting fees, that kind of stuff. It really just depends on the situation. If you rent a house, sometimes they just let you take care of it all. They just want your rent every month, that kind of stuff. It just really depends. Usually, it's gonna be about a 12-month lease. Some places it's 6, some places it's 9 months. A lot of places have gone to just strictly the 12-month lease. It just makes the most sense. You get a full month or a full year, and they go from there. You can usually renew it if you pay your rent on time every month. They usually allow you to renew. It just kind of depends on your situation. Some people, just live in one spot for a year and then move out. Totally up to you. But yeah, that's basically it for renting. You just have someone to kind of report to, that kind of stuff. When it comes to buying, it's a little bit different. There's a different process. Your money is used in a different way. There's different fees, that kind of stuff. But just the general guideline of how buying works. the first thing you're gonna do is get a pre-approval from a mortgage or from a mortgage lender. Unless you have the set amount of money you're looking to spend in cash in your bank, you need to get a pre-approval. You're probably gonna take out a mortgage of some kind, whether it's FHA, VA, conventional. It really just depends on the situation. But that pre-approval is key when making an offer. A lot of people are expecting a pre-approval with an offer. It just helps to have. Once you get your pre-approval, then you can really decide on like how much you're willing to spend. If you get pre-approved for $100,000, awesome. That's fantastic. There's plenty of $100,000 houses that are great houses. Maybe you get approved for 2, 3, maybe even 500,000. Just depends. But even if you get approved for 50,000, 20,000, that kind of stuff, there's great houses at every price level. But that pre-approval is crucial. If you're only approved for like 200,000, that keeps you away from looking at $500,000 houses. Once you get that pre-approval, it's similar to renting. It really narrows down the list of houses that you're going to look at. It saves you a lot of time from looking at houses that are out of your budget, too big, too small, that kind of stuff. But your search for homes really begins. And it's kind of the same way as rentals. You decide, do you want a house? Do you want an apartment? Do you want a condo? Do you want a 3-bedroom? You want a 4-bathroom? Do you want a backyard? That kind of stuff. That's all, stuff you get to choose. Once you, choose some homes, you can contact a realtor like myself. You can contact, other realtors. You can contact the listing that you're looking at, that kind of stuff. They can help you search for homes. They can take you on visits to these homes, on showings. We can get you into places, that kind of stuff. Using a realtor is a great idea. We just have knowledge of the market. We can really help you decide if, that home is priced correctly. We just want to make sure that everything's taken care of. So once you contact a realtor like myself, we can kind of begin the process of going to see homes. If you decide that you like a home, we can, make an offer and, start that process. So we'll get a little bit more into, kind of how the whole buying process works in another episode. This is just more of like a basic, general idea of how buying works compared to renting. Once back to like, once we are visiting this home, you decide to make an offer. It really depends on what kind of mortgage you've been approved for. If you have cash, usually it's, between 5-10% down as your earnest money. If you have a mortgage, usually it's, between 3% and 20%. It really kind of depends on what kind of mortgage and the situation that you're in, that kind of stuff. But once you pay that earnest money and you have an accepted offer, closing date, all that kind of stuff, you get to move in. Instead of paying rent to a landlord, you're paying off your mortgage, which is basically going back into your pocket. You're gaining equity in your house. So that's how the money is used a little bit different. And like I said, in another episode, we're going into more of the buying process and how it all really, really, really works. There's pros and cons to buying. There's pros and cons to renting. Like I said in the beginning of this episode, it really just depends on, what your situation may be. Sometimes, you might not have that 3 to 20%, to put down. A lot of people don't. So maybe the renting is a better idea right now. Maybe that you do have that and you want to start using your money to build equity. Great, buy a house. It really works out. So, some of the pros of buying, like I said, equity, there's no landlord, you get tax benefits, it's possible that your repayments will be lower on a mortgage than as opposed to a rent. It just depends on the situation. Some of the cons of buying is more money up front. Like I said, that 3 to 20% down payment, that can be a lot of money sometimes. You're responsible for your repairs of your own house. When you have a landlord, sometimes, they'll help you out and they'll send a maintenance guy out to kind of like help fix things. When you have a house, it's up to you. Also, when you buy a house, that's kind of your house. That's usually it's a 30-year mortgage. You're into that house. You can sell that house anytime, but it's different than renting. When you rent, it's just, however long your lease is, and then you can move up and get out. It's totally up to you. Some of the pros of renting, there's gonna be fewer upfront costs. Like I said, usually it's gonna be just like your first month's rent and a security deposit, maybe a pet fee if you have one, but it's just usually not quite as much. Now, if you're renting a $2,000 property and they expect a full month's rent and you have a pet fee, okay, Then we're getting up into the 4,000, 4,500 range sometimes. Gets a little bit expensive, but that's if you're renting a $2,000 house. You're not locked in, like I said. With renting, it's usually just a 1-year lease. Then you're kind of out. The value of the homes don't necessarily matter to you. They do a little bit because it'll change what the rent is from year to year. But when you buy a house, the value of your home really, really matters. That matters to your resale value. That matters on your, property taxes, all that kind of stuff. Some of the cons of renting, the landlord's kind of in control. They decide if you can have pets or not. They decide, what you can and can't do. If you want to knock down a wall, you can't knock down a wall without their permission. It's totally up to you, or it's totally up to them, excuse me. You might have to move. Sometimes the landlord might sell that house, then you might have to move. They have to honor your lease for the full year. But if you wanted to stay another year and that next people don't want to rent it out, well, it's their house. They can kind of choose that. You're not building equity when you rent a house. When you're paying off a mortgage, you're building equity in your home. That home is gaining value to you. When you're renting, you're kind of just paying, your rent to somebody else, and it doesn't ever come back to you. It's just you're paying a rent every month. It's just $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 a month, whatever it may be, and it's just going to somebody else. So you're not building the equity like you do when you buy a house. Also in renting, there's not any tax benefits. You're not building equity, so you're not getting any tax benefits back. That's just one of the cons. But there's great things about both renting and buying. It really just depends on what your situation may be. Buying, building equity, renting, you're saving upfront money costs. It just really depends. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave any comments. I'd be happy to answer them. This is episode number 1. This is going to be, a few more episodes of this show, and we'll go from there. So thank you.